Here's what your average pool player would like to know before they play snooker. This is Break from Life. Welcome back, and if it's your first time watching one of our videos, then it's fantastic to have you here. If you're going from pool to snooker, then the first thing you're going to need to know is if you have a cue that's compatible with the game. Unlike in American pool, snooker players will only have the one cue. But other than the right feel, what sort of things should you be looking for? Both the weight and the tip size of a cue are determined by how big the cue ball is for the cue sport you're currently playing. This is a snooker ball, and as you can see it's a lot smaller than an American pool ball. However, they're both significantly bigger than an English pool ball, and what this means for the size of your tip is you're going to want something between about 8.5 to 11 millimeters for playing snooker, and if you're new to playing the game, ideally you want to err it towards the higher range of this just to make the game easier to play. There's a big difference between lighter and heavier cues in snooker, but ideally you want something that's between 16 and 19 ounces. And the height of the cue should come up nicely to your shoulder. So you want to find a cue that's about the right length for you. Which is hopefully what Creative Cat from Luanda, Angola already has. And now for some differences in terminology.
Trying to bank the three in the corner that he's cueing over.
He's got to shoot a combination here.
Well, look at the English on that ball.
This has less to do with the differences between snooker and pool and more to do with the difference between English and American English. Although you usually find all these terms can be used interchangeably anyway.
Do a follow shot this time.
This is a topspin shot where you strike the cue ball above centre to help it run through.
Draw shots.
This is a screw back where you strike the underside of the ball to get it to spin backwards after contact.
Well, look at the English on that ball.
This is side spin that allows you to swerve the cue ball on the table a little bit and spin dramatically off cushions.
Stop shot.
This is a stun shot where you get the cue ball to stay where the object ball is and possibly move to one side or the other. This obviously is a snooker, but sometimes in American pool it is referred to as hooking your opponent.
Kick however way you can.
A kick shot is where you strike the object ball cushion first. There's no real term for this in snooker other than probably snooker escape.
Go after the long reel.
In snooker these are always known as cushions, either top, bulk or side cushions.
The head string.
This is known as being in bulk, and this is a bulk cushion.
Don't scratch.
In snooker this is known as an in-off, but only if you struck another ball first. If your opponent pockets the cue ball, then you have to play the next shot from the D, where you're allowed to play a shot in any direction.
Trying to bank the three.
This is known as a double, but if it comes off two cushions, it's then known as a treble.
He's got to shoot a combination here.
Two or more balls together like this is a plant.
Goes for the carom.
This is a cannon, when you use the cue ball to strike multiple balls, often to free them up. You can also use a cannon to help you pot other balls. I've heard this described in pool as a billiard, though there's no snooker term for it. There's obviously a lot I've missed here. And then there's snooker tables themselves, which are absolutely massive. I mean, pool tables take up a lot of space, but you can usually find a big enough room for them, whereas a snooker table is 12 foot long by 6 foot wide, and then you need room around the table to cue. So not only is it obviously too big for this room, it's even too big for this room. Even this room is nowhere near big enough, and that causes a problem.
Hey, who the hell are you? What are you doing in my house?
The pocket sizes are small enough to stop two balls going in at once, and obviously the slower you play it, the more likely it is to drop in, but it's still not guaranteed. Balls do go in the middle pockets from really tight angles, but you need to be very accurate with every single shot you play. The pockets are a lot more generous from the middle of the table than they are as you start to get closer and closer to the cushions, where you need to play the shots absolutely perfectly in order to pot the balls. Pocket sizes vary massively table to table, and this is just something you have to consider before playing any shot. What does make snooker a lot more straightforward though is you respot any coloured ball after you pot it, and this means you can always rely on being able to play fairly straightforward shots as long as you can keep the cue ball roughly in the right place. And this gives a huge advantage to anyone who can make a big break, because they can very quickly clear the table and win games without ever letting their opponent back to the table. But how do you play the tougher shots down the cushions? Generally speaking, with this type of shot, if the ball touches the cushion at any stage, it simply won't go in, and it doesn't even matter how slowly you've played it. To do this, you have to play the shot with a far jaw, but this means you have to be incredibly accurate. If you want to line up any shot accurately, the first thing you need to do is find the centre of the cue ball. And once you can do this, it's going to feel like the cue ball stuck to the end of your cue. And if you think about it in this way, then you only need to work out where you need to get the cue ball in relation to the object ball. So then it feels like you're directly playing the tip of your cue to where you're aiming on the red. And this just makes the game a lot more straightforward to understand. Snooker is of course scored using points, and there's only a few ways you can win a game. Firstly, by ending up with more points when the black is potted, or when somebody has made a foul on the black. As a foul on the black ends the game also ends if there's more than 7 points in it once the pink has been potted. And of course the other way a game can end is if a player realises they're far too far behind for it to be worth them carrying on and concedes the game. But not too far away is Andy, who's from Santa Tequila in El Salvador. Snooker escapes can be even more challenging and very costly when you get them wrong. It's not just leaving your opponent on you have to worry about. You could lose a lot of points playing this sort of shot badly, especially when you factor in the miss rule. I've shown before on this channel how using lasers and mirrors can help you escape even the most complex snookers. Have a look at the video of the card if you want to know more. The break at the beginning of a frame or rack is done a lot differently between pool and snooker. Because of the difference in tables, you've got a lot higher chance of pocketing a ball in pool, as well as the fact you can hit the top ball in the pack, whereas in snooker the pink's in the way, and this makes it a lot less likely that any red will find a pocket. That's why when you break off in snooker, you're looking to try and get the cue ball back into the bulk end of the table. The length of a snooker table alone is enough to make your opponent's shot difficult, and that's before you get the cue ball under the bulk cushion or potentially get the snooker. Not only is this a great defensive shot, it's a brilliant way of forcing your opponent into a mistake. And a well played safety shot like this makes it difficult for your opponent to even return the ball to bulk. Positioning and distance on their own are enough to make any seemingly straightforward shots very tough. But still not anywhere near as difficult as finding Bruce in Corvallis, Oregon in the United States. In all cue sports, control over the cue ball can be incredibly vital because there can be a big difference between being here and being here. In any cue sport, when you lose control of the cue ball, things can go wrong. But in snooker, you have to deal with almost every shot being missable, even if you are in good position. And that's why I highly recommend, even if you do only have a small amount of practice time, spending it practicing controlling the cue ball, especially around the black spot. But not only does a poor positional shot make the next pot harder, it can also make it a lot less likely that you're going to be able to play position on that shot, and the whole thing can just spiral. And in snooker you can go from perfect position to end of break in just a couple of shots without even missing a ball. Obviously having a good cue action for snooker is going to be even more vital, but it may not be as crucial as being able to line up a shot accurately. The type of bridge all snooker players use is where you place your hand flat on the table, bring your knuckles up and your thumb in, and you need to make sure this won't rock around or move in any way as you bring your cue back and forward over your thumb. Something else I think is absolutely vital as you walk into the table is to make sure you bring your cue in straight on line. Otherwise you can end up having to strike the cue ball with side spin in order to pot it. Staying still on a shot and not changing your mind are both very vital, but they're not necessarily the same thing. You need to stay still on a shot, but you also have to work out exactly what you're going to do before you get there. Otherwise you can easily lose sight of the shot, but other than that I wouldn't worry too much about your technique. Because even if I play this shot as badly as I can here, if I've lined up straight to this red properly, there's no way I can miss it at this pace. And that's not to say your technique isn't incredibly important. It pays to have a bigger spoon, and if you want to find out exactly what I mean by that, try our video about straight cueing in snooker, or if you want to find out more about the origins of snooker, find out how Joe Davis changed snooker forever. And remember, don't just watch, play, and make the commitment to becoming a better player by subscribing to the channel and visit the website. See you later.